Just a couple things that we'll cover. I just want to quickly talk about our kind of what we do as a college recruiting team. We're not really a recruiting service, or we provide recruiting guidance. We help guide athletes through the recruiting process. We do one-on-one meetings virtually. We will provide feedback on videos and draft emails. That's something that I actually think more people could take advantage of, just sending us a quick email to those emails down at the bottom. Hey, can you take a quick look at my video? A lot of times we might have one or two little tweaks just to make it better, kind of looking at it from the coach's perspective. We'll do webinars like this and sometimes send out some content. We've got a big and growing network of coaches that we have access to, whether it's via email, text, phone call, depending on our relationships, that we can help find out where an athlete might fit or get some kind of inside intel on, where an athlete is in the process. So that's definitely a kind of growing part of what we do. And then we also provide access to a discounted rate with Sports Recruits, which is a recruiting platform, not a recruiting service. I think that's pretty important. Just a note on kind of recruiting services. There's a lot out there. I think most of them are not good. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. I think most of them are not worth the money and can be pretty predatory in terms of really, going after parents who may not know too much about the process or may be afraid that their athlete isn't going to get there. Not to say that I haven't seen them be successful, but most of the athletes that go through the process don't use a recruiting service. They might use some guidance like us. They might use a platform like Sports Recruits to help organize their process. But if someone's talking to you about paying upwards of over $1,000 for recruiting services, that's to me a big red flag. And if you're thinking about doing that, maybe always come and ask us first, because there are some that are better than others. But in general, I am not a fan. And I think that if athletes want to go play in college, they should be going to do that legwork with our guidance. And there's so many resources out there to help them. A lot of it's just hard work and persistence, like getting better on the court. So they should be used to that. So here's our new kind of team structure. So I'm the team lead. I'm going to be checking in with athletes, whether it's over, email, text, or sometimes just popping by in practice and saying, hey, what's the latest? In terms of the meetings, Ryan, who's on the call, Brendan and Ian, who are not on the call, who are coaching college as well. All three college coaches currently will be taking more of the meetings. And what we've done this year, now that we have so many more athletes kind of in the pipeline, is dividing up different roles for different people based on their kind of specialties. So Brendan is really great at kind of working with people when they get past the kind of initial phase and their mid to late stage recruiting, helping them turn interest into offers or trying to get information, ask the right questions, things like that. Ryan, who's our newest member of the team, currently the assistant coach at Trinity College in the SCAC, and also coached at St. Francis on the men's side. So has experience on the boys side of things, which is kind of a different animal. And he's going to be working with any boys athletes and anyone who has kind of general interest in D3 or high academic D3, especially. And then Ian Choi is head coach at Fordham. He's going to be working with any athletes who are just starting out the process. He's really good at giving that kind of calming guidance just to help you figure out where to start. And then anyone kind of looking at schools at that level, mid-major D1s, he would be a good person to talk to as well. And all three of these coordinators coach and will be in the gym at different times trying to get to know the athletes as well. So I'm really super excited to have a full team this year. Just our philosophy, I already touched on this a little bit. We are guiding athletes through the recruiting journey. Your athletes will do, I'm going to say 98 to 99% of the work on this. And we think that's really important. Consistent feedback that we get from college coaches. They want to hear from athletes. They want to talk to us too about, maybe, hey, is that athlete a hard worker? And kind of get some maybe behind the scenes information, but they really want to hear from the athletes and they want to work with athletes who really want to go there. And that means that the athlete kind of needs to do that work. And then one of the things I tell people, especially if you have an athlete that's sophomore, freshman, eighth grader, the most important thing that your athletes can do in the recruiting process is try to get as good as they can so that when they are ready to start, this, or when college coaches are ready to look at them, which depending on the level might be sophomore year, might be junior year, might even be beginning of senior year, that they're good and that their video is good, and that it make the college coach's job easier by just being a really strong player. About 6% of high school volleyball players will compete in college. That's across all high school, anyone who plays in high school. We're definitely trending higher than that in terms of a lot of our 18s, 17s, and 18s going to play in college. But you guys know it's hard to make teams, and so the process kind of funnels as we get to junior and senior year, and about 1% will play at a Division I school. So that's a big reason why, if you come to us with a list of all Division I schools, the very first thing we're going to tell you is we got to expand that and have a broader look, unless you're maybe one of the top 100 athletes in the country, which is almost no one. That is just something for you guys to think about. Like, we really need to be broad, and everyone of course wants to go to Duke, but like that's not going to be the case for everyone, and we really want to cast a wide net and try to find the best fit. And then just some numbers, I won't go through these, but we'll share this out in terms of scholarships available. Scholarships in D1 are headcount based. They can't split them in a year, although you can sometimes. It's getting more common for people maybe to offer 3 out of 4 years, or 2 out of 4 years, or to ask them to earn a scholarship, not always a full ride. And then when you get to D2, the scholarships are packaged together a little bit more. You can have athletic and academic or merit. And at the D3 level, no athletic scholarships, but there are a lot of opportunities for merit at that level as well. In terms of this timeline, the first thing I just want to say is, if you are somewhere along this, you're a freshman or you're a sophomore, let's say, and you haven't done all the things on the freshman side of things, like, that's okay. We've had athletes enter the recruiting process at every stage here. We've had people start in 8th grade freshman year. I don't generally recommend starting before freshman year, unless it's maybe just kind of researching and dipping a toe in, because you can kind of see some burnout there. But we've had athletes start junior year. We had an athlete who started playing club with us as a junior and is now an all-conference D3 setter, and committed, I think it was around sometime in the fall of her senior year. And then we've had athletes who've committed, right at the end of their sophomore year, beginning of junior year. That's definitely more rare. So there's a lot of pressure and a lot of kind of comparison. And I would just encourage your athletes not to get too wrapped up in that. If they feel like they're behind in the recruiting process, they can always ask us. If they, we feel like they're behind, we might say something, but in general, everyone's just kind of going at their own pace. And even for athletes that may go play D1, they may commit late junior year, early senior year. That is something that we sometimes see. So it really ranges depending on the athlete, and everything for boys is going to be later. Because boys are often starting club volleyball later, developing as athletes later, and the coaches are just used to kind of looking at boys athletes junior and senior year, unless you're really like a top 50, top 100 and that's top 50 or 100 in the country, not in our state or in our region. Ryan's going to talk just about some of the kind of materials and first steps that we need to do to get started.
Yeah, let's get into some of the things that we're going to have to think about when we begin this process. The first thing that we need to do is be contactable, right? So it's a good idea to have an email address that's set up personally for you as the athlete. And this can be something that you and your parents both co-manage, right? You're going to want to have them be on that as well. But having an email address that you can be reached at personally, really important. And as you can see in the example there, using Kat's name, that's a great way to do it. Your name and then your class. That's super brief and straight to the point. That's a good thing to have. So that's step one. Number two, for those of you that might not know, there is a service called University Athlete. University Athlete is something that every college coach is using. They've almost monopolized the recruiting process at this point because it's a really great service. So if you're at a tournament and you see college coaches on their phones, they're not texting, they're going through University Athlete and they're trying to find players. This is where, as college coaches, we can see all of the players that are at tournaments. We know exactly what court they're on, what team they're on. But it's incumbent on you guys to create a profile, create an accurate profile of who you are. So that includes very basic information like your name, your recruiting class and probably your GPA, right? And then your team that you're playing on, your jersey number. That's very important because this is the service that we rely on to find you. And there are, once in a while, doesn't happen often, but there are horror stories of athletes whose information is not correct on there. Maybe their jersey number is wrong or something. So I'm looking for you and I'm recruiting the wrong person because your information might not be. So go to universityathlete.com. We're going to get to that in the next slide. You can create a free profile. This just makes you findable by any college coach, which is really important. Okay, after this, we need to do two things. We need to get some film together, highlights especially. This is going to be something that you're sending out to coaches. So when you contact coaches or when you send out emails, you're going to want to have video to accompany that email. That's very important. I get a lot of emails all the time from players saying, hey, we'd love to come to your school. It looks great. No information about them, no class, no footage. It's very hard for me to understand who you are and to try to learn about you. So oftentimes a video is your first exposure to a college, to a coach. So starting to compile clips together. And then this is where we can get it to, like Kat said, services that compile videos and all that stuff. So having footage. Last thing, coming up with schools, right? And this can be dependent on where you are in the process. If you are freshman or even 8th grade, this is probably not something that's super important right now, right? It's a good thing to start to think about some of the broader characteristics of where you might want to be. So maybe I want to go to a school that's small, 3,000 to 5,000 students, right? Or I want to go somewhere on the West Coast where it's warmer, right? That's a good way to start to narrow your search down. But as we get towards sophomore, junior year, this is hopefully becoming a little more refined with the things that you care about in a school. So things like, do they have my intended program of study, right? What is the division? What is the conference? Where is the school? Stuff like that. So this is where we got to start. If you're new to this to the process, these are the things that we should be doing first. We'll go next here to University Athlete. This is just a really quick description of what it is. You go to this website. Everybody who has a USA Volleyball membership, which I believe everybody does if you're playing with the club. Is that right, Kat?
Everyone should. We just went through it and not everyone does. So a lot of people will be hearing from us because we can't actually add them to the rosters for some of the upcoming tournaments and we get into January. So definitely check to make sure that you did that. If not, you'll be getting message from your coach or from someone at Northeast saying, hey, you got to renew that membership. Once you do that, you use your USAV member number to claim your profile. So everyone already has one. We really have nothing to do with it. It's something that once you have a USAV membership number and you're affiliated with a club, and even if you played at a different club last year, you could set up your University Athlete profile now with your same member number and then switch your affiliation when it'll switch for you when you do your new registration. So this is definitely really important and something that I hear from college coaches all the time, especially those high academic schools. They're like, I had a coach tell me once, like, I wish everyone's GPA and test scores were just on their jerseys. Okay, obviously not a feasible thing, but they are, if those athletes are staying up with the recruiting process, they can put that information on University Athletes. So those schools can right away see, hey, is this someone I can even be looking at academically who would get into the school, because they might eliminate some of the players right off the bat.
And so that's where going into University Athlete and creating or claiming your profile, and that the only distinction is it's a free profile. If you are a USA Volleyball member, which all of our players should be, there's already one created for you. So you would be claiming that profile, just saying, this is me. And then you go in there, you make sure all your info is correct. But Kat's absolutely right. That's something that you have to update, because sometimes parents make the mistake of signing up for their athlete, but now the parent name is on University Athlete. That is a huge problem for us because we're not recruiting your mom. So making sure that it's the athlete's information. And then things like class and GPA are super helpful to us, right? Because if that's right there and I can see it immediately, I know right away if it's someone that could potentially come to my school. I coach at Trinity. It's a NESCAC school in Hartford. We're a very high academic school. So for me to be able to see the GPA right away is really important for me. That saves me a step. And that helps out my process.
Having your video, even though a coach might be looking at your profile while they're watching you, having your video link, whatever your latest videos are on there as well, is helpful. Just so if they literally will star or favorite you, And now they have access to your video, even if you haven't maybe sent them an email yet. Basically, put as much information on there as it asks for. Don't leave anything out, because you don't know what coaches might be looking for.
And again, the best part about this is you don't really have to do anything. Once all the info is accurate and it represents who you are, it just makes you findable. You know, I was at AAUs in Florida last year, just walking from court to court to see the people I want to see. But if someone catches my eye on the way, I can very easily search that and find that person. And now I'm watching you play. So really important that you have that stuff. Emailing coaches. This is part of the beginner, I guess the 101 recruiting materials that we should be doing. Starting to formulate an email that you're going to be sending out. A lot of players create a template, which is something I would recommend, right? You create a template email that's basically, this is who I am, everything that you think that we need to know. So those are things like, again, obviously, I need to know what class you are. That's a huge thing. If I get recruiting emails, they don't have their class on them, that doesn't help me, right? Like, I don't know where you are or how old you are. So please, graduating class, GPA, things like that. And then you can get more specific with it. Like, here's my approach touch. Here's how high I'm touching on my approach, right? Here's how tall I am. That's really good. My one caution on the email is, if you are creating a template, which is a good idea, you just have to make sure you're proofreading it before you send it out, right? Like, make sure you change the school name and it's going to the right school. Change the coach's name. You'd be surprised, but we get emails all the time that are addressed to someone that is not me, or addressed to a school that I don't coach at. So that's not a great look, right? So having a template is great, but make sure that we're reviewing the information every time. We're making it a little more personal than that. Sometimes athletes write "Go Bantams" at the bottom of their email to me, because that's our mascot, Bantam. So that's kind of cool, right? You're making it personal. You're sending it to the school, even though it's based off of a template. You're sending it to the school with intention and with purpose. And then, like Kat said earlier, we can help you draft these. If you want, send us a mock email, and we can help advise you on things to add, things to take out, and make it look good.
If your athlete, or athletes, if you're on the call, if you forward me an email from a coach and say, what should I say to this? I'm going to tell you, what do you think you should say? And send me a draft, and then I'll look at it. We won't write emails for you. Again, the coaches want to hear from you. So take a stab at it. Answer it like a normal human would answer their questions, you know? Like, this is the funny thing. What should I say? They asked me if I want to have a phone call. You know, do you want to have a phone call? Okay, now say yes, and give them some time. Like, it's not they know that the kids are 14 or 15, 16, 17 that they're talking to. It doesn't need to be a formal, professional, you know, LinkedIn type email. You can just write back what you think. But if you're really not sure if you're saying the right thing, and you want to say, hey, here's my draft, what do you think? Like, we'll try to get back to you within 24 hours on that, because we know that we want to get back to college coaches quickly and stay top of mind. So that's a big one for me.
Before we move on, I'll just touch on that last point here. There should be a video. Like, this is why it's very important to be gathering footage already. Regardless of how old or how far along you are in this process, have some video, have something that I can look at. Like I said, we get emails all the time, and there's no video attached to it. And it's not very helpful to me, right? Like, unless I can go see you live, which maybe, I want to be able to see some footage. So that's why it's important to get some film together so we could attach it right away. So let's go on to the video part. This is really important. This very likely is the first time that a coach is getting to see you play. And that's really important, because coaches are good at this. We watch films every day, and we can tell pretty quickly if you're someone we're interested in or not. So I want to see footage. And if I am interested, I'll probably respond, and we'll get to how to converse with college coaches and all that stuff. Now, this year, and maybe Kat, you can talk a little bit about the app. We've partnered with Ball Time. Ball Time is an AI generative software, films matches, and it creates data analysis and all sorts of really cool things for coaches to use. But it's also one of those things like Huddle. I think we used to use Huddle, right? It'll auto-generate a series of clips for you. So it'll take out all your attack actions or all your blocks and put them together, and it sort of creates an automatic highlight. So those are good services that will do that for you.
Sometimes the best way to get some highlights, if you know you had like a really good match, would be still to just go through, you know, the video on your own, but Ball Time will pull out like the actions that it tags you in. As we submit more video, it'll get better. It's like it learns as it goes. So the first few times it might not pick up every hit you had. So sometimes it might still be better to go through the film. If one or two matches on your own. That's going to be something that will really help make the process faster. And from what I've seen so far, it seems to be a little bit faster than Huddle in terms of like processing times of the video. So that was a plus. And then also if you are like, hey, I didn't have a great tournament, or maybe I was injured, or maybe I didn't get to play as much as I wanted, you can always film practice. We do a lot of scrimmaging in practice. And, match film is definitely the best, but practice film is better than match film that's not, great, or the no film. So you can set up a tripod. We often have them down on the courts, or if we don't, a coach or a director can go get you one, and you can just put your phone on and film your match, always from the end line, that kind of view of the side you're on, so they can see you play. Skills videos are definitely something that we see that can be good. If you are someone who can go up and hit the ball on a 10-foot line, showing that in a video might be valuable. But in general, coaches want to see game film more. That's something that they're going to look for. The skills video might get them interested, if you're jumping really high, hitting really hard. But they want to see if you can do it in, a game or practice type setting.
Skills videos are interesting. They're a lot more common in some other sports. Like I was talking to some coaches at the school, like baseball coaches love to see skills videos because it gives them a great idea of the player and how they perform actions. For volleyball, less so. For some reason, we don't really like that. But if you have that in place of nothing else, that's better than nothing. So yeah, we would want to see something. The quality of your film matters, right? And as we're getting our first films together, it's okay. We want to have some footage of you playing, and that's good. But as we get better at this, the level that you're playing at, like the competition across the net, really matters. Like sometimes I get a highlight video from an outside hitter, and she's hitting on a net and nobody's blocking her. It's like, all right, well, good hit, right? But I want to see like the level that you're playing at as well, right? I want to see and usually club is good for this. That's why we like to film when we go to club tournaments. You're getting good footage from a good tournament against good teams, and that's really helpful. I know a lot of the times, especially in this region of the country, high school volleyball is less competitive in some areas. At least it was where I came from in New Jersey and such. So club can produce really good footage as well. But in the absence of all that, something is better than nothing. And again, ask us, send it to us. Say, what do you think of my film? And I won't be nice. I'll tell you what I think of it. I'll be nice, but you get it. Here's a couple things to think about when you're compiling a video. And again, none of these are hard and fast rules, but they are tips, and they're sort of tricks of the trade that we've learned the more we've done this. So first thing I want to see is your name, the jersey number I'm going to be looking for, GPA, everything right in the beginning. In the title slide, just straight, here's who I am, and then we get straight to the content. Let's make our skills ordered in such a way that makes sense for your recruitability. So if you're a middle blocker and your first action is serving, it's like, all right, well, that's not bad, right? But I want to see you block the ball, and I want to see you hit the ball. That is like the most recruitable part of your position. That's generally what I'm looking for. Serving can be in there later on, right? Or if you're a libero, right? You're a passer defender. That's your main role, right? So starting with serving, maybe not advisable, right? So maybe we try to tailor the ordering of our video to our best plays and our most relevant actions to the position that we want to be considered for. This is just a tangent. Sometimes I see videos where they circle the player and then the action happens, right? You know what I'm talking about, Kat? It's like, here, I'm an outside, I'm going to hit, and the ball comes over, the video freezes, and then a big circle happens around the player just so I know who it is, and then the video resumes. And they do that for every single play for a 7-minute video. Maybe we don't need that. I think after the first couple times of circling who you are, I got it. I know who you are, right? And then just generally speaking, if a 10-minute video turns up in my inbox versus a 3-minute one, which one do you think I'm going to click on first, right? I want you to get to the point. I want to see who you are, and then I can make a judgment from there. Oftentimes players will compile, say we're going to Capitol Hill this weekend or something, right? We have 3 days worth of potentially good footage. So we'll make a video all from Capitol Hill, right? It's all coming from one place. It's consistent. It's not spread out over 6 months or so. It all happened on one weekend. That's a really good thing for me to see.
I think if a lot of you guys are just coming off your high school seasons, you may have made high school highlights, which I think is a great kind of starting point. You said maybe the competition might not always be as strong depending on who you're playing against, but it's a good baseline. And then, okay, as you go to your first tournaments in December and January, making a highlight from, each one of those. Maybe not we're going to, 7 or 9 tournaments depending on team. You don't need 9 highlight videos, but maybe you do 3 or 4 throughout the year from some of your best tournaments. And then hopefully you're showing growth. So maybe in your high school video, you were this good. And then in your next tournament, Winterfest or Capitol Hill, you were here. And then in your tournament in April, you were here. And now that coach is really kind of tracking your progress. And I think it's better to send more shorter videos than like less longer videos. I don't know if you agree on that, Ryan, but just something that's kind of quick updates, showing your progress, and really get that coach to kind of be invested in what your growth, and that's a big thing that you need them to do. Ideal length video. I think for me, 2 minutes to 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes if it's like season highlights and you're a setter who has like a lot of different things to do. You need to show setting a lot of different areas, but I really think like 2 to 4 minutes. And I'd rather have even 90 seconds of fantastic video than 5 minutes of mediocre video. It really depends on kind of where you are and what type of video. Is it season highlights? Maybe it goes up to 5. Tournament highlights, maybe that 2 to 4. I think whatever length you need to make it good is really the key there.
It's tricky, right? Because it depends on a lot of factors. It depends. Is this the first video you've ever made? It probably shouldn't be 30 seconds, right? So, or are you a junior and you have a lot of interest from one school that says, hey, keep sending us stuff. Maybe you're flashing out 2-minute highlights to them once a month, right? So I know it's not a satisfying answer, but it really does depend on where you are on the process and also what the point of the video is. So that could be something that you could reach out to us and say, hey, we're class 25. These 3 schools have shown us interest and they want to see more of this. Okay, we'll tailor our video towards what its purpose is. I guess a quick answer though, if we're just doing our first or second video, 1 to 3 minutes maybe. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
I think that should be okay enough for us to get a good idea of what we're looking at and to see if we're interested. Last point here, this is an interesting one because I was just in LA for a recruiting showcase thing, and we sat on this panel with like 30 coaches and all these kids and parents, and they're asking us stuff. And this question comes up is, should I put my favorite song in the video? Should I mute the video? Should it be game audio? One coach said, don't put music in it or I won't recruit you. And another coach said, I recruited a kid specifically because she had a song in her video that I loved. So we're all over the place here, right? But a good rule of thumb, it should be appropriate, right? If you're going to use music, that is a personal choice for you. And if you really want to, you're marketing who you are, right? So I can't take that away from you. Personally, when I'm viewing videos, I actually like to hear the game audio. Sometimes that can give me an indication of the communication that's happening on the court. It just feels a little more real to me. I know that's not a great reason for liking it, but I just like the game audio or no audio at all. Music, I don't really mind either way, but some coaches do mind, and you would hate for the reason that you don't get recruited be because you put a song in that wasn't appropriate or something, right? So we can advise you on that. If you send us a video and it's got some song in it, we're probably like, maybe not. Or we'll say, sure, but it's, again, case by case.
Unless you're doing stuff on Instagram, maybe you're making a reel that you're trying to make it more entertaining. That could be a place where you show your personality more and use music. But yeah, for the highlight videos, I say game audio or probably no audio, a song if you must. It's, again, personal for you and kind of personal for the coaches. So there's not really a hard and fast rule there.
This is just generally a good idea. If you're going to create multiple videos, which if you're beginning this process early and are following up with coaches, you likely will have multiple videos. So create a YouTube channel, and it could be the same as the email that you created, right? Your name and your class, that could be the name of the channel. So you're findable on multiple different platforms. I know players that do this all the time. They write their YouTube channel is specifically for their highlights, and now they have a link that they can share out in addition to other things as well. So consolidating all of that into one place, really efficient way to do that.
You even put that like in your email signature. I think it's really important if someone, especially if you're a recruit who's looking, maybe to go to a higher level, if I Google your name and volleyball, Kat Minyard volleyball, I should see some video come up on the internet of you playing volleyball. And hopefully it's good video. If you put up a YouTube channel, that's video you can control, not the huddle highlights of the 3 blocks that, happened 2 years ago or something. So that to me is an important one. And that's something I'll sometimes do for some of our players and just say, hey, I didn't see anything. Can you get your latest video up so that people can find you?
The first thing that I do, if I'm trying to find a player, I go to YouTube, I write their name and volleyball. That is my first search entry all the time. And then maybe your name, volleyball 2023. Like those are the searches I'm putting in. Definitely want to be searchable. All right. This is where I come in. So there's a ton of services that will make videos for you, and a lot of them are automated and they're fine. I have been running like a little bit of a side business where I create custom videos myself. This is a service I've been offering to other clubs and to players that just want to play at the next level. So I've made videos for junior players that want to play in college players that want to play professionally, any age, range, skill level, anything like that. Come to us and ask what you think would be the best way to create a video. Sometimes the huddle and ball time highlights that they clip up are perfect and they're good enough, and that's totally fine. Sometimes people want a more personalized experience. They want to have control over the video that they're putting out into the world. So in case there's any interest, right, we just felt like including this just so that you know you have options. This is something that I do. I create, edit, and produce videos on my own. And it's a much more personal process where you're speaking to a human being that can help you edit according to whatever you want. So just thought it was worth mentioning. This is a hyperlink that will take you to all of the information page. So something to consider if you feel like it.
Ryan's videos are really, really good. He has a really good eye. And this is something, again, your athletes might be totally proficient in like iMovie or InShot or whatever they use to make their videos. Or maybe they're, a junior who's doing SAT prep and just got back from a 3-day tournament and does not have the time to do this. And then in which case, Ryan may be able to help you do that, because this is a question we get a lot. And so we wanted to add this for anyone who's interested. All right. Sports recruits we already touched on. This is a platform, not a service. It's something that can just help you organize your process. You get a profile, a good place to house your videos. You still need to do the work of emailing the coaches, but you'll get access to the coaches' emails and be able to, tag schools and things like that. You can also see when people view your video. So we've had a lot of success with, we probably have about 25 athletes on the, or 20 to 25 on the platform. If you're interested, we'll send out the link after. It's definitely not something you need to do to get recruited. You can totally manage it on your own, on a Gmail and a Google Doc. But this helps some people, with kind of notifying you and keeping you organized. These are really the only two paid services we offer. So you can, the Sports Recruit subscription is $250 for the first year, $200 for the year after that. And then Ryan's videos are based on an hourly rate. It could range from, $100 to $200 a video. Everything else, like our feedback, our advice, the meetings, that's all included. Let's talk about some of the things as we move off of kind of the beginning stages. So talking to college coaches, get a lot of questions about this. If you are a freshman or sophomore, you're only going to be able to communicate with Division III coaches in terms of a one-on-one conversation, unless you're going to a college camp, in which case, they can coach you and speak to you. But if you're talking about, phone calls or meetings, there's a D3 coaches who are able to talk to you anytime. D1 and D2 coaches aren't able to have that one-on-one contact before or up until June 15th of sophomore year, at the end of your sophomore year, which is totally fine, because for most people, that is kind of around the time that they might be starting to really get into the recruiting process. And now coaches can say, hey, let's have a phone call, or you can ask for a phone call at that time. Again, if you're a top 150 recruit in the country, top 200, you may be getting some emails on June 15th, but there's kind of a myth around that date that if you don't, get a lot of interest or a lot of emails right on that day, that you're not going to get recruited. And then that's absolutely not the case. It's a rule that was put in place to kind of protect the student athletes. What it has really done is sort of make us the middlemen in the process through your sophomore year. So if you're an athlete that's, getting interest, you're not really allowed to be a recruit yet for a D1 or D2. You're getting interest through sophomore year. You're going to be sending them emails and they can't reply to you. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be sending them emails. Please don't take that the wrong way, right? You can still be sending out information at any time. They just can't reply to you and say, hey, yeah, we want to recruit you, until after June 15th of sophomore year. And that, again, is only for D1s and D2s. What they can do is reply to me or Ryan and say, hey, we loved Ryan's video. Like, please tell her or him to send us more. That is about as good as you can get in terms of saying, hey, they're interested in you. So that's something that we would, forward to you, and you keep reaching out. So, but I highly recommend that if you're a sophomore, freshman, kind of interested in the recruiting process, start some communication with some Division III schools in your sophomore year, so that you can get, even if maybe you're looking to go to a higher level, who knows, you might end up there anyways. Maybe you find that's a better fit, or, you get some practice speaking with coaches before you get to that point where you can speak to the Division I's and Division II's. So I think in terms of like how often, that's a question we get a lot. Early on, it could be, once a month, something like that. As you get later into the process, every 1 to 2 weeks is not too much. Most people don't reach out enough. That is definitely something Ryan and I talk about a lot. Most people don't want to bother coaches. They don't want to be pushy. And in fact, it's the opposite. You want to kind of bother them to the point where maybe they just say, hey, we're not interested, and then you stop wasting your time. Or, hey, yeah, this person's really persistent, wants to come here. Let's actually open their video and see. But if you send 1 or 2 emails, or you're emailing once every 2-3 months, that's probably not going to cut it, because you really, think about them getting hundreds of emails in their inbox. Your name needs to be consistently popping up in their inbox for them to say, hey, let's pay attention to this person. You're kind of trying to get their attention. So again, more is better than less. If you are bothering a coach, they'll probably at some point just tell you no, but I really find that that's very rare, that most people are not reaching out enough. In terms of the conversations, a coach might direct a conversation a little bit more, but at early stages, it's going to be the athlete directing it more, expressing interest, asking questions, with coach kind of replying to that. I like to think about communication as kind of like a funnel. You have a lot of people communicating with coaches via email. It's a big list. As you get further down the process, you want to try to move to like a phone call, FaceTime or Zoom, something like that. And then maybe to even like texting with a coach, or like an Instagram DM. Some coaches don't use that. Some coaches do, but it's always kind of worth a shot. You can email or DM a coach your video, and some coaches are following kids on Instagram, and that's one option. But kind of moving from email to the more personal forms of communication is usually a good sign that you're kind of on their narrower list of athletes versus on the larger lists of hundreds of athletes who are emailing them. So that's kind of a great way to start building the relationship, moving from that more professional communication to something that's a little bit more personal. All right, in terms of system tips, again, don't ask anything. You can Google what size is your school, things like that. Ask questions that we'll give you some examples. We won't go through them all in detail, but ask questions that will make the coach think, and be prepared to answer whatever questions they ask you. Do a little research ahead of time. Make sure you know what conference they're in, how they performed last year. If they have a match coming up, you want to know about that. Be professional, but also be yourself. Again, you don't, with your emails and your phone calls, you don't have to treat it like an interview, except for in the sense that you should be on time and be prepared. Other than that, you can be yourself, show your personality. I think I see that people tend to go too far the other direction, where they're too formal, trying to treat it like a business interview. And it's like, they know your kids, they want to know your personality. So you don't have to be afraid to show that on a phone call. And then always have questions. You should think of this process as you're kind of finding out about the coach as much as they're finding out about you. This is a coach you're going to need to spend 4 years of your life with if you stay with the program and they stay with the program. So you want to make sure it's someone you really respect, that you think they have a good level of volleyball knowledge, and they, can help you get better and will be invested in you as a person and as an athlete. So really paying attention to kind of what they're saying is important. We'll post these so you can go through these, but making sure, I think the question that we'll call out, that first one, if you're a setter or a libero, if you're a hitter, you can assume they're recruiting hitters in every class. Almost every class is going to take a middle and a pin, sometimes 2 even, but they might take a setter or libero every other year. So make sure that if there is a spot for you in that class. That's really important. And then your questions might go from more open-ended to more direct as you go further down the process. And we have some examples of kind of each of those here.
The bottom line really is, don't be afraid to ask, right? We want to hear from you, and we're here to answer those questions. I think that a lot of players are nervous about pushing. They don't want to seem like nosy or pushy. Don't worry about that. Be pushy, right? Because I'm going to remember your name, and that's a good thing. So don't be afraid to be direct and ask questions that you genuinely want the answers to.
And if you are really enthusiastic or interested in the school, like expressing that, not being afraid. You don't have to hold back your enthusiasm or interest, not the time to be kind of coy. Coaches want to recruit players who really love the school and they think are going to just give their all to the program. So, expressing that enthusiasm, if they're interested in you and they say that, or if you have a number one school, I sometimes gotten off the phone with athletes and they're like, yeah, I had a call. They told me they were really interested and it was their number one school. I'm like, well, did you tell them they were your number one? Like, no, I didn't know. I wasn't sure. Like, tell them that, like that's good information for them to know. That might move you up the list because maybe they know, hey, if we offer this player a spot, they're likely to accept versus someone who maybe gives off the sense that that school is not in their top 3 or 5. And, definitely making sure that you're being honest with coaches as well. Don't tell 10 schools they're your number one school, but you don't need to say like, oh, you're my number 9 either. Like maybe there might be a nice way to say that, hey, I'm really interested, but maybe not saying you're my number 1.
Yeah.
And you never know, like that school that maybe was somewhere, 8 to 10 or 10 to 15 on your list might end up after a phone call or after a visit moving up into top 3. I've seen that a lot. So you don't want to, kind of go in with the idea that it's not a school that you might be interested in, because throughout the process, your list could change. And maybe your dream school, you go visit and you don't like it. You don't like the coach. So keeping kind of all your options open and not, burning any bridges or looking down on any interest that comes your way, even if it's not a school that maybe you thought would be on your list.
So a lot of things that players are doing now is sending out their club schedule to the schools that they're in communications with or interested in. You can say, hey, this is me, class of so-and-so. Here's my schedule. This is where I'm going to be. Hope to see you at these tournaments. That's really handy for me, right? I already have, university athlete on my phone, so I'm able to find you. But if I have it in like a little screenshot, all the tournaments, I know right away, all right, great. I'm going to make a note of this. When I go to any Qs, I got to stop by and see this player. So that just shows initiative, if nothing else. It shows that you want to be recruited and you're putting yourself out into the world, which is really great. Some players will do this before every tournament, which again, like that's kind of up to you. Like some players, I know players that before every single overnight, they fire off, hey, I'm going to be at this overnight. Here's my schedule for day 1. They do it every time. And that's cool. Some people think that's overkill, but again, like what we're talking about is more communication is better than less. So I don't think that's a bad idea at all. If in fact that makes me remember you. So definitely something to have handy. Take a screenshot of your schedule and include it in the emails that you send out. After a tournament, let's send a follow-up, right? Especially if they came to watch you. That's really important. If you noticed that the school, like you sent an email to say Tufts or something, and then you're playing and you notice like, oh, there's a Tufts coach over there. They came by to watch. That's great, right? Even if it was on accident, that doesn't matter. Like send a follow-up and say, hey, it was so cool to see you at the court. Like, thank you for coming by. Thank you. Say thank you, right? It's really important that you are personable, right? This all goes back to, I want to recruit human beings that play volleyball. Like I'm not just going to recruit you because you can play. Like I want to recruit people. I want to recruit a human being that I think fits into my culture and is someone that we can build a good relationship with. So all of these things, being really communicative, being kind and thankful when people do show up, like it does go a long way. And then again, the highlight video, right? If you can compile highlights from the event you were just at, put that into the email, it's a great recap. So already in the course of 1 weekend, you've prepared me for where you're going to be. So I know where to go find you. I got to go see you because you told me where you were. And then afterwards you followed up and said, thanks for coming to see me. Like that already, that's 3 points of contact that I'm going to remember.
All right. We only have a couple minutes left. So I'm going to kind of just talk about a couple things. As you get past that June 15th date and maybe you're into your kind of junior year and you're uncommitted, especially if you're an uncommitted senior, definitely need to be touch base with coaches like every other week, every week, sending them short updates. This picture's worth 1,000 words, just meant to say like, hey, you can send a video or a little picture of, your dog, or hey, here's our family on vacation or something that's just like shows your personality. It doesn't always have to be all about volleyball, but this is a time when you want to be starting to ask more direct questions. And we put some examples there as well. You really want to start narrowing your list when you get down to to this point and crossing off some schools that maybe aren't interested. I'm going to skip the section about summer camps. We'll send this out. The only thing I would say that you guys need to think about with camps right now, if you're interested in going to summer camps, is start maybe looking in February, March when they start getting posted, maybe making notes of the dates and trying to think about what schools you might want to go to. You can always sign up for more and then kind of cancel later. As you get further down the process, kind of who you're communicating with matters. I've had this conversation with some of our athletes. If you're a junior and maybe you're only communicating with the second assistant and you haven't had a call with the head coach or heard an email from a head coach, that might be a sign. That second assistant might be the person who's dedicated to recruiting, but usually at that point, the head coach would be kind of having some of those conversations. So it doesn't mean that it's a school you cross off your list, but maybe, you say, hey, I'd love to speak with Coach so-and-so. And the answer you get might be indicative of their level of interest. When you do get emails back from coaches, when they're allowed to email you, how personalized is it? Did they just send you the link to the questionnaire or camp invite, which might not be indicative of them recruiting you? Or did they say, hey, thanks for the update, really loved your video, good luck at this tournament, we'd love to see you at camp, and you can tell it's something that they spent time typing out. That would be a better sign. I said this before, but moving towards phone calls and texts, those typically mean you're on a shorter list. It often starts with email. A lot of recruiting happens over email and then might move to kind of in-person camp, phone call, text, visits. So it's kind of like your structure down the process. Are you being recruited? If a coach responded to your questionnaire submission, maybe, maybe not. We need more information. That doesn't necessarily mean you're kind of on their recruiting list. It might indicate interest, but it might not. So keep being persistent and reaching out and trying to get that information. As you get further down the road in the process, that's something we can help with too. We can, text or email coach, and especially if it's, kind of before that sophomore year date, to try to find out, hey, is this a player you're going to be interested in, and try to get an answer. One of my big things is in the recruiting process, obviously, yes, I'm interested is really helpful and really exciting, but no, I'm not interested is just as helpful because it helps you cross schools off your list and focus on the schools that are, interested. The maybes or the no response is kind of the worst case scenario because you don't know where you stand. So keep trying to get those answers as you move through the process. All right, for the parents on the call, things for you guys, be involved in the process, ask questions, help your child stay organized, maybe remind them if you have access to that inbox, remind them to reply, within a day or two, but would prefer you not answer those emails for them. The coaches can generally tell that the emails are coming from parents. If you're on a visit with a coach and they ask your athlete a question, not answering for them. I see that a lot. And it's okay if your athlete's maybe nervous or not struggling with the answer, but they'd still rather hear from them, and not you. I would generally say not calling a college coach on your child's behalf unless you are later in the process and you're having conversations about finances, scholarships, things like that. I do think it's really good at the end of the process for the parents to speak to the coaches before any decisions are made to make sure you fully understand, if they're offering any sort of financial aid or scholarship, what that looks like, kind of what their role might be, and just sort of vet the coach because this is someone that your athlete's going to be spending 4 years with, and making sure that you have had a conversation with them at some point before any decisions are made, and especially if it involves finances, that's important. And then at tournaments, just one thing that you can do that's helpful if you have athletes coming in person or coaches coming in person, making notes and letting us know maybe who came to watch, so we might be able to follow up or talk to them if we see them. Introducing yourself really quickly, or a quick wave to a coach that maybe you've met or that your child has talked to, but not going up and talking to them about recruiting or asking them what they think of your athlete or things like that. That's kind of a big no-no. And then obviously your behavior, as well as the athletes. We've mentioned this too. We tell this to the kids all the time, athletes, how you speak to your parents at tournaments. If you're yelling at them rudely to go fill up your water bottle, and a coach sees that might cross you off a list, right? Parents, if you're screaming at the refs, that might cross your child off the list, that things, just being on and representing Northeast well and representing yourself well are important. But I definitely think the parents should be involved in the recruiting process. And if your athlete is not involving you, then I think you can make sure that they do, sit down and have a meeting with them and go through their list and because this is a big decision that they can sort of lead, but we need you to be involved with it as well. Here's your checklist for your kind of next steps for those of you that are just starting. And some of you may have already done 2 or 3 of these, and you just need to get to step 5. Once you get past step 5, things get, I would say, a lot easier in a way. Now you're doing your follow-ups and things like that. If you're just starting, getting through these steps are kind of the toughest part of the process. It's the part where people get stuck on the most, and maybe they don't even get in, they don't even start. So I would encourage you guys to start this process. If you decide later that you don't, want to play in college, or you want to go in a different direction, you want to go play club at a bigger school that maybe you're not going to be, making their team. There's kind of no harm in doing this exploration and just seeing if it's an option for you, because there's a lot of different opportunities at a lot of different levels for athletes, whether you're on a 1s, 2s, or 3s team, boys and girls. There are a lot of opportunities out there. I know we shared a ton of information. We're going to send you guys, and we'll post this document with all the links. We'll post the links that we put in the chat. If anyone wants to, I'll stay on for a few minutes. If anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask a question or put a question in the chat, feel free to do that. If not, we'll probably be getting a few meetings on our calendar in the next few weeks, be my guess. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you guys for being here. Please drop some questions if you have them. As you probably learned, most of the answers to all this is it depends. So don't be afraid to approach us, set up a meeting or shoot us a text or an email with questions that are specific to your case, because we're here to advise you. And that's the final point I'll make, is that we are advisors, right? We're trying to guide you through this process. We are not going to do it for you. And this is very important that, especially athletes, but also parents, encourage your athlete to be very proactive in this, because ultimately I'm recruiting your athlete. I'm not recruiting you, right? So I want to see that they are proactive and they're trying to take the right steps to do these things.
Yeah, as a freshman, do you register for camps or wait to be invited? If you haven't sent out emails and gotten in front of coaches, they have no way of knowing kind of who you are. So registering for the camps of the schools that you're interested in, while also simultaneously sending them video or starting to email them, would be a good first step, versus waiting for them to come to you. They might not find you. If you start sending video and they really like you, they might send your video, they might send you a link to register, but also they might just send those links out to everyone who sends them stuff, because they want, to fill their camp. So I think just signing up for the coaches that you want to get in front of is a good kind of first step, of making sure that you're also sending them video so they know to look for you at camp. That's a big one. Showing up at camp can be kind of risky if you haven't sent them some video so they know, hey, this is a player we want to see. Maybe they put you with some of their top recruits, things like that. You kind of want them to know to look out for you, versus just showing up. Obviously, if you show up and you're 6'4" and crushing the ball, they'll notice you, but kind of getting in front of them before camp is really important, I think.
Just to add on, there's different types of camps, right? There's camps that colleges host on their own. So you could go to the University of Michigan camp, which is at the school, and then other coaches will go there to help run, but it's Michigan's camp, right? Sometimes it's prospective, sometimes it's just general. And then there's also camps like the one I was at recently at SG Elite, which is a club in LA. The club runs its camp, and they invite all of their players and all sorts of coaches to come in. So that's more like a showcase style camp. So there are different versions of that. But I thought a really great thing about that was, as soon as we announced that we were going to be there, I got a couple emails from players saying, hey, I'm going to be at this camp too. Looking forward to meeting you. And so when I got there, I found them and I saw them right away. So that was a good thing that they did.
We hosted camp last year, the second weekend in June that we've done it. This will be our 3rd year doing it. Last year we had about 25 coaches. I think it was about 15 D3s, 1 D2, 9 or 10 D1s there for a full day. And we had athletes, it was about 80 athletes, maybe 25 or so from Northeast, or 20. And then athletes from other clubs. Some athletes came in from California, from Salt Lake City, Texas. They wanted to get in front of, we had a lot of high academic schools there. And we got really good feedback on that. I recommend that more for people who are I wouldn't say that should be your first camp, because those spots really should, we want those spots to go to kids who are kind of in the process and getting looked at already, because it's pretty limited. But that is a really good one as well. And there are other ones at, at T Street, San Gabriel, Wave, other clubs do those as well. You can always ask a college coach, hey, what camps are you going to be at? Because they might be going to ones at different clubs if they don't run their own. But if they have it on their website, they might post that, as well. So we'll be sending out some information about that in the spring. But if that's something you're interested in, mark your calendar for that Saturday, June 8th. How old do you need to be to attend the college camp? There's no age limit or anything. I think in general it was mostly freshmen, sophomore, juniors. I guess not really seniors because at that point they were, already kind of graduated and done. But mostly freshmen, sophomore, juniors. We just recommend that it's mostly people who have started their process, but anyone can sign up. There's not limits, based on level or age.
And they might specify that if they, for some reason, want to cap it at certain age groups or whatever, they would make that known.
Oh, thank you guys so much. And it's a lot of information. It's really overwhelming, but hopefully the process can be kind of fun too for your kids if they're starting. Thank you guys.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.